Hello, thank you for stopping by. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a hand crank to almost any vintage sewing machine quickly and cheaply. And at the end of the video, I will go over my current sewing work in progress, a Star Wars Jedi costume. Welcome to Friday Sews. The easiest way to turn a vintage sewing machine into a hand crank is to pick up one of these. I got this from sewingpartsonline.com, but if you just do a web search for sewing machine hand crank, you will find lots of different products that are almost identical to this at a lot of different price points. So you can search around and find whatever's cheapest. I'm guessing they're all pretty similar quality. The trick is that they have to have these little silver clutch knobs at the back of the machine. Most vintage sewing machines do, and they are usually universally interchangeable across brands. I don't know if that's 100% true, but if it will fit any vintage Singer, it will fit any vintage Singer clone, and it will most likely fit any of these Japanese zigzag machines. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be adding the hand crank onto a Kenmore Model 33. Now you might ask, why would I want to do that? This machine was never meant to have a hand crank. And the simple answer is to go over very thick seams. I sometimes like to sew coats, and this machine handles heavy outerwear fabric pretty darn good. But when you go over the seams where you get multiple layers of that heavy outerwear fabric, I often bog down and break needles sometimes. What I often find myself doing is going over the seams, turning it by hand like this, which is just sort of inefficient. So I thought I could add a very simple hand crank onto it just to get over those thick seams. And this one's so small that it folds up easily enough. I don't think it will interfere too much with the regular operation of the machine, and it won't be bulky so it takes up a lot of space. The process for switching these out couldn't be easier. You just take the little screw that's holding on the clutch knob and unscrew it, being careful not to lose it. Turning the clutch knob towards you, you unscrew that and take it off of the back of the machine. There's usually a little washer behind the clutch knob that has 3 prongs coming off of it, and you want to be careful to not let that fall off if you can avoid it. For some of these machines, I know for this Kenmore, if you don't put it back on the exact right direction, the machine doesn't work correctly. So you got to be very careful not to let that fall off, or at least to put it back on the same direction that you took it off. So I am just adding my little screw back into the clutch knob so it doesn't get lost. Taking the hand crank, I am taking the little tiny screw out, making sure I don't lose it. Then I'm screwing it back to where I took the other one off of. That's it. The machine now has a hand crank. How cool is that? It's important to remember that this hand crank isn't very efficient. One turn gives you 1 stitch, which could get exhausting pretty quickly. I am not using this for full-time sewing. I'm using it to get through bulky areas of fabric and when I just want a little bit more control. If you're looking for a full-time hand crank machine, your best bet is to go with one of the vintage Singers and buy either a vintage hand crank if you got deep pockets, or one of the modern replacements for it, and do it that way. But this really does make a pretty handy little addition to most machines. Moving on to a work in progress, the Jedi costume. It is almost complete. I just need to finish hemming. I gotta say, I'm very happy with the way it looks. I like this deep dark blue, and I hope that the reflectiveness picks up on the camera a little bit. Unfortunately, I didn't get this finished by May the 4th like I really wanted to, but it's still gonna be a great costume for Halloween or cosplay, or if I just wanna look like a weirdo on the L. Under the robe, I have the belt, shoulder armor, tunic, and the dicky all the way at the bottom. The dicky all the way at the bottom that gets completely lost and you can barely see it. I will be posting a video about the process of making this pattern where I will talk about what works, what doesn't work so well, and I will give some tips that should be helpful if you want to make it for yourself or somebody you care about. That's all I have for this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the future.